get my phones over here. There we go. Yeah.
That worked very.
That worked? Oh, okay.
So must have to reread the file or something.
Okay. Okay, very good. Try one more thing here. There we go. So we're going to continue our discussion on day 3, and my goal is to talk about mobile this afternoon. That'll be our first topic, and then also move into Postini. What happened to all of the Postini stuff that was there before? Oh, we moved it over there. Okay. So how many of you think that, do I need to connect myself? Sorry. I'm not connected yet, I'm sorry. So how many of you think that mobile devices are important in your customer rollout? Like what century do we live in? Yeah, exactly. So we want to make sure that we cover, mobile devices and expectations. So what's interesting about mobile and mobile devices is sort of like networking. You have two groups and they're sort of a little bit in conflict with each other. In a corporate environment, you have the administrator of the customer domain that has certain expectations and certain requirements. From a corporate perspective, what's important to the administrator? What's functionality the administrator wants or requires? Security, certain controls. So if I am going to allow my users to use a mobile device to access their email on this smartphone, I want to make sure that what do they have on their phone? What passwords? Certain restrictions, password requirements, certain password policies. You want to be able to have some control of the device. What happens if it gets lost? Okay, so it's not just my personal information that's now on the smartphone, but I also have corporate information. So there's that expectation. And then on the other hand is the user's expectation. Okay, and what does the user expect? So the user wants accessibility. They want to get to whatever they want when they want it, right? They may have certain experiences that they want. So for example, the user maybe they prefer the web interface on their phone. Maybe they prefer to use the native mail client on their phone to access their Gmail account. Or maybe they prefer the Gmail client on their phone. So there's also the user experience, the user expectation. So those are all elements that are very, very important. So basics, just in terms of basics, if a user does have a smartphone, they can go ahead and use the web interface to access their email. So that certainly is one option. Other options in terms of the user is IMAP applications. Okay. So the thing is with IMAP, so for example, I can still use my native phone experience and I can use IMAP to get access to Google Apps. Now there could be some issues with IMAP, because as a domain administrator, you can actually disable IMAP in POP. So you have those controls available to you. But with mobile devices, users may prefer the IMAP, run their IMAP applications. They can get notifications. It caches their mail locally. But just some of the concerns is it's not immediate. It doesn't support natively the single sign-on. So that could be an issue. Maybe it's not an issue. And it also doesn't support message threading. So they'll see each of those in subsequent conversations as individual message threads. Okay. With BlackBerries, there's if customers want to continue the native BlackBerry experience, we also have the Google Apps connector for the BlackBerry Enterprise Server. That definitely requires quite a bit of installation and integration. Has anyone worked with that? Worked with that yet? Yeah, Ted has, yeah. Done some great documentation on that. So we are able to integrate and recreate the BlackBerry Enterprise experience. The problem is it's a little bit more involved. It wouldn't be something you'd want to do for free during a pilot, because what happens in that environment is the customer has to install a clean instance of the BlackBerry Enterprise Server for those users that will be going to Google Apps, and also install the Google Apps connector for the BlackBerry Enterprise Server. So I always like to highlight this because it's all about expectations. It's not that kind of connector where you just, I have my system set up already for BlackBerry, I'm going to add the connector and I can talk to Google Apps or to anywhere else I need to. That's not how that works. You actually have to do a clean install of the BlackBerry Enterprise Server and then reactivate the users after you've installed the connector. So it's a little bit more complicated. That can cost the customer money. So it's all about setting expectations. So in some of those customer deployment workshops I've gone to, it wasn't an issue that we brought this up. They wanted to know about it. They're planning their purchase orders. Do they have to buy additional licenses? What do they need to go live with their BlackBerry Enterprise environment? So it's not a bad thing. It's just you need to know so that you can set expectations. And once again, if you're doing a pilot with a customer for free and they're going to be using BlackBerries, the question you have to ask is, are you going to pilot that? Are you going to charge for it? Because it is more involved in setting that up. Okay.
So in that scenario, you have, in the end state, you would have the same full BES infrastructure that they have today?
Yes. But in order to get that connector to work with Google Apps, with the RIM server and all, you have to do a clean install.
Right. So if you had 2,000 BES users and you had 4 BES servers today, you would probably need to get a 5th BES server and at least one more to swing people.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. As you swing them over, you'll have to have another instance. Exactly.
They have to have at least 1 or 2, and then at the end you could retire 2.
Right. I mean, I would hope they would eventually get off of it, yeah. Because you're going to deactivate them off of their Exchange, and you're going to reactivate them on the Google Apps. Okay. And then, Ted, remind me, there were some limits on the number of users that you could activate on an instance, and that's gone, what is it, up to 1,000? 500?
Right now, for 417, it's 1,000.
Okay. So I always like to highlight that when we first came out with the Google Apps connector for the BlackBerry Enterprise Server, the limit was 250 users, and that's now gone up to as high as 1,000 users per installation. Okay, so the cost to the customer has gone down significantly. But if you were around when it first came out about a year and a half ago, that number was really low, and now it's gone up to as high as 1,000 users. The method that we're going to be able to demo, and I'm sorry I only have 2 phones right now that we can do this on, is ActiveSync. And the benefits of running ActiveSync, first of all, you have to have a phone that supports ActiveSync, is that the user gets the native experience, it pushes mail, it synchronizes mail, calendar, contacts, as well as notifications. The user can decide which of those they want to synchronize. You also get the benefits of device management, because one of the features, actually we've seen some enhancements in this in the last couple of weeks in Google Apps. Actually, this has been a big focus of ours since the beginning of the year, is we've expanded the mobile settings that are available in Google Apps. So this has been a big change since January, and actually we added additional device control settings as of, I think, 3 or 4 weeks ago. Okay? So the option here is to actually allow your users, if you wish, or not, or turn off their ability to use ActiveSync on their phone. Okay? So it gives you those controls for your domain for users that are trying to use ActiveSync. So let's look at the 3 options that you have here. The first one is turn off Google Sync, so they cannot synchronize their devices through ActiveSync. You could say, I want to turn it on, and if their phone supports these device settings, we're going to enforce it, but if it doesn't, that's okay. Or you can also select Restrict Google Sync, which says only synchronize devices that support the following settings. So if you have certain security criteria for your company that you have to enforce, you may want to go ahead and say Restrict. What I've done on one of our demo phones, and I'll let the other one float around, is I have a user that whose phone did not have any passcode required at all. There we go. I have to recharge that real fast. And what I'm saying is after they synchronize their phone, they're going to be required to have a password of a minimum of 4 characters. I'm only doing 4 characters so I don't have to remember my password. Okay, really, really long. You can also set the number of days before the password expires, the number of expired passwords that are blocked. After they've reached that blocked number, they then get locked out. Okay. You can also decide when to actually lock the device after how many minutes. Also, the number of invalid passwords before the device is wiped. Okay. We'll wipe it actually to their factory resetting. Also, whether you want to allow them automatic syncing when roaming, and whether you want to allow them to use their calendar. The default is the following. There are no password requirements. It allows them to do automatic syncing when roaming and allows calendar. You would have to go in here and impose your own restrictions. Okay?
Why does it say camera?
Camera. Why?
You said calendar.
I meant camera. Thank you.
You said it twice.
Sorry. Camera.
Only one.
For the camera's sake, I said camera. Okay? So I meant camera, whether you want to allow them to use the camera or not. Once you go ahead and do that, the user goes ahead and runs ActiveSync, and I don't know if you can see this. So I actually have a user called Train1 at postqa43.com. I'll show you the user setting in a moment. This user did not have a password. Okay, I don't know if you can see this. It's now requiring me to enter a passcode.
Now, is that a passcode to actually lock the phone itself?
For the phone itself.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and continue, and I have a low battery, and it's prompting me to enter my passcode. I'm just keeping it very simple, and I'm just going to enter 1, 2, 3, 4. I better recharge this really fast. Then I hit return, re-enter it. And as long as I meet the criteria now, I'm able to continue using my phone.
Now, if they go ahead and wipe their phone,
And
wipe the password.
okay. And also, I want to point out that my camera, if you can see, is no longer visible either. Okay, it takes anywhere from about 15 to 30 minutes for the whole synchronization, the initial synchronization to happen. I've seen it happen faster and I've seen it happen slower. Okay, so we have another phone, or I can go ahead and delete this account in a moment, and if somebody wants, they can do this exercise as well. How many of you have actually used ActiveSync with Google Apps already? A couple of you have. How many of you have not? The ones that haven't raised your hands, not everyone, I don't see everyone raising their hand. So how many of you have actually used ActiveSync with Google Apps?
As a client, you mean?
Yeah, set it up and use it or control it through your control panel as an administrator. So what I was going to do is I was going to pass the phones around, and if people want to do that. Now that's my user train1 at postqa43.com. This is also the domain I use for Postini, so I just moved over. So if I go to my organizations and users, and I look for the user train1, where is he?
No, it's somewhere else. Right there.
You passed it.
Right there.
Yeah. It should be for the twos, right? There we go. So here's my settings for train1. And you'll notice if you look on the bottom, once the device is synchronized, it lets you know what type of the device the user has, lets you know when they first synchronized the device, and then you have the ability to wipe this device. Remember also, one of the device settings was to automatically wipe after a certain set of unsuccessful logins as well. So I want you to be very careful with this setting, because it will actually reset the user's phone to the factory settings.
So wiping any pictures, everything else?
Everything. And I have verified that. Okay? So when would you do that? When?
When you don't want somebody to use an iPhone, you want to switch?
That's one. Okay. Maybe it's a company phone and you're switching, users. When it gets lost, so you're concerned about theft and you have really sensitive stuff. Okay, exactly. That's what the intent of that is. I don't know if you remember, but the Tuesday morning when we talked about security, we talked about other elements of security that you can implement before wiping a device. That's pretty severe, because it wipes out the entire phone, all the settings. You could have, let's say it's a situation where someone temporarily lost a phone and they find it again. You could just go ahead and require a change of password in the next sign-in. You could also reset the sign-in cookies. So these are other options before actually wiping the device.
So the change of password, if you set that, then the next time that anybody goes to that mobile device,
To access their email. Doesn't change the passcode on the phone, but it changes the password for their email.
email, calendar,
Yeah.
etc.
Require them to change their password. Or that's another thing you could do, is reset their password as well.
But how does that, suppose it's still lost, you wouldn't want to do that.
No, that's why I'm saying it depends on the scenario.
I see. And how about for other devices besides ActiveSync supported devices? How does it work, like, for example, the Android phone? Can you control those similar settings with however?
You would
Android
think,
syncs?
so the question is with Android, what about the device settings? You would think that being part of Google, and we have this Android phone, that you would be able to implement the device controls that way, but you can't do that through the control panel yet. It only is through ActiveSync.
Because,
So
future.
what phones actually use ActiveSync then?
So we call them any Windows phone, for example, iPhone, if the user implements that through there. Does anyone have another list? I mean, you really have to go to your mobile provider.
Free doesn't do
Some
it.
Nokia phones.
Some Nokia phones. So.
The iPhone is lower than most pictures.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over here on this particular phone, and I'm going to remove my account. So we can pass this one around as well. Now, once I go ahead and delete the account, it still has my passcode on here. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead to my settings, and I'm going to go ahead and remove the passcode. Or I'll just tell you what it is on this phone. It's 1234. Okay, so we can pass that one around.
When you delete the account, does it automatically reactivate the camera?
That's a good question. I don't think it does. We can check.
So it means you have to wipe it and restore it, do something to delete it.
Oh, the camera's back. Yeah, it is back. It doesn't remove the camera. It removes the ability of having the camera visible. So it doesn't actually remove that application. Okay?
The user doesn't get warned about these things when they first sync what they're going to use, or
No. No. Then that's part of the question is the user warned or notified about this? No, they're not. Hopefully it's part of your communications. If you're going to synchronize your phone, use your phone with, corporate email, you will be subject to these, these restrictions is really the goal. Okay? So I want to go through that list again real quick. So this is really easy to demo to a customer, isn't it?
But there's no roadmap right now, or they don't know when they're going to be doing Android devices?
I'm sure there's some form of roadmap.
Okay. Is there an application that can be added?
So, not that I'm aware of. Does anyone know? Jeff, do you know? So, anyway.
Are we all under NDA?
What?
Are we all under NDA?
Yeah, I really just don't know. And I mean, I'll be honest, and I'm willing to put this on camera, not calendar, but on camera, there were some of these additional settings that I thought we were going to see a little sooner. I mean, this year is supposed to be the year of more mobile device controls, and we've definitely seen them. In the first quarter of the year, we saw the first set of device settings here. They were basically around password restrictions, as far as allow automatic syncing of roaming and allow camera and encrypting data, and the automatic locking out functionality that came out a few weeks ago. I expected that to come out sooner, so I'm not quite sure what some of the issues are around that.
Yeah, because as an enterprise solution,
Yeah.
and especially if Google's really making a push to replace, or they've already taken,
Yeah.
past BlackBerry, as an enterprise solution, this is kind of something that's paramount.
Yep, I agree. So, but I haven't seen the official roadmap for that. And I think that's a very valid question. It's just you would think, for the Android, where Google.
Made by Google?
Yeah, but the reality is it was only really recent since we've really started
Yeah,
the Android taking over in the mobile marketplace.
the assimilation.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, why don't we can cut off the presentation at this point.